What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Week 18 Dynasty Pros Weekend Warmup. I'm Mason Greinberg. Let's hop right in.
Hours, I'll do it. All right. So, without further ado, and that's not Canadian for adieu.
Adieu.
Because that's a goodbye. Without further ado, let's get to our fantasy MVPs. So let's have you start it off. Let's go with because we don't have news, so you're bereft of words tonight.
I don't mind that.
It's like 10 in the morning on us. It's like 9 in the morning on the West Coast on Saturday. So I don't know why I said night. I'm just dumb. Okay.
People must think, who is this guy every Saturday morning taking out this whiskey minute? It's like
I just explained I had a martini for breakfast. So they're not questioning. There's a motto I live by: you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. So day drinking is my favorite. All right, so let's go ahead with Mike Greinberg's first fantasy 2023 most valuable player.
Well, for me, so we broke this down and we took a position player from, well, a player from every position. So Brendan has one MVP as a quarterback, so do I, and so on and so forth. So we're going to break it down like that. So for me, my fantasy MVP for quarterback position, drum roll please, is Brock Purdy. I had Purdy in a couple of leagues, but notably the Fishbowl. He was drafted as my QB3 at the time, but ended up outperforming both my studs, Patrick Mahomes and Anthony Richardson. Purdy was widely being drafted as a low-end QB2 because of his injury and some camp competition. Purdy kept silencing critics all year. He finished as the QB6 on the season, throwing for 4,280 yards and 31 touchdowns. Purdy was not only valuable in Superflex, he was valuable in one quarterback leagues. He actually single-handedly won me a couple weeks. So for that, Brock Purdy is my 2023 quarterback MVP.
Woo! Brock Purdy.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, that was a pretty good assessment. And more Purdy puns. All right, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my 2023 fantasy MVP at quarterback. Now this is a man. This is a man. I'll give you a hint. He was a second-year quarterback this year. I drafted him in one of my dynasty leagues in the 19th round in 2022. I picked him up off waivers in my home league. And he had a week 14 bye. But for the first 13 weeks of the season, Sam Howell came in at QB 4. There's 4. QB 4. Sam Howell was QB 4. Now, if you follow Player Profiler on TikTok, then you saw my video today about who my MVP was, and I noted that Sam Howell got shit on at the end of the season for some poor play, but I will argue it was all terrible offensive line play. Same thing that hampered the Jets quarterbacks and Derek Carr and blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. You have to have a competent offensive line to compete in the National Football League. And your MVP has a phenomenal offensive line. Sam Howell had a garbage offensive line, still managed first 13 weeks to be quarterback 4. Week 14 bye. Week 15, he had a down week. Week 16, he got benched. Week 17, he was non-viable. But that was okay because once he got me there, Jake Browning, Derek Carr, and Jared Goff, my TikTok video autocorrect did the captions as Jake Browning jerk off. Jared got those 3 quarterbacks, got me through and won me a ship. Let's fucking go. So Sam Howell got me there. The other 3 guys carried the water the rest of the way, and Sam Howell is my QB MVP for 2023. And Cal legend Ron Rivera, I hope he's out in Washington. I hope they keep Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. I don't want him to be the head coach, and they need to shore up that offensive line. Keep rolling with Sam Howell because the dude can be an elite talent in the NFL, and I will pound that drum until the day that I die or Sam Howell retires, whichever comes first.
Oh my God. I completely didn't listen to a single word you said after you told me Jared Goff's new nickname. And I am like
Cal legend Jared Goff.
When you sent me that message,
Nevada boys.
I thought you actually typed that out. I didn't realize I was like I didn't even know Jared Goff was part of that conversation.
That was the TikTok captions. I'll read it. I'll read it to the viewer.
No, you don't need to.
No, it's because it's funny. It says, and through week 13 of 2023, he was QB4 in PPR scoring. My MVP for 2023 is Sam Howell. Now, he didn't have a great end of the year, but I still had Jake Browning jerk off. What I had said was, I still had Jake Browning, Jared Goff, and Derek Carr lead me the rest of the way to the ship. But yeah, I still had Jake Browning jerk off. Folsom legend, Jake Browning. Fresno legend, Derek Carr. Novato legend, Jared Goff. Sam Howell is the odd man out. He has nothing to do with Central and NorCal. So that's yeah. Anyway, so that's my quarterback. What do you want to do next? We got wide receiver, we got tight end, we got running back. What do you want to do?
How about you do your wide receiver and then I'll do mine.
But what if we have the same wide receiver?
Do we?
I don't know.
Okay, well then I'll
You start because I have 2 just in case we have the same one.
Pivot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I doubt this is one of yours. So my wide receiver here, and perhaps it was
I'm listening.
Perhaps it was our common obsession with our puka necklaces, or it was his flowing locks. But there was something that drew me to Puka Nacua all off season. I loved his tape coming out of BYU, and I knew his landing spot couldn't have been any better. While many people were all in on Van Jefferson,
not many people, just me.
Yeah, no, though there were lots, and some of us were defending Puka early on. Puka went mostly undrafted in shower leagues, unless you played in a league with me, of course, who drafted him everywhere I could. One of the most valuable draft picks or waiver wire acquisitions, Puka simply balled out this year, earning 153 targets that turned into 101 receptions for 1,445 yards and 5 touchdowns. Puka is only 28 yards shy of breaking the all-time rookie receiving record. Incredible story. Puka will be drafted early in the second round in redrafts next year. He was one of my most valuable picks in so many leagues, whether I traded him or I used him throughout the whole season. He was a valuable thing that got me a key piece, or was a key piece in a lot of my championship runs. So thank you, Puka. You and we have something in common here, buddy. Let's do it.
All right. Well struck, Mike. All right. Let me tell you a little story about Puka Nacua. Now, you were wrong because He was one of my guys.
Oh, okay, cool.
I had two. Now, let me frame this. I'm in a league. It's a very unique scoring league. It's a very unique roster league. And I had a lot of incentive. There's a guy who I respect that I see a lot on the YouTubes, and he created this league. And throughout this draft process, I had my eye on one guy, and that guy's name was Deneric Prince. And I was going to draft him with my second pick in this draft. But this guy, the commish, took Deneric Prince. I was shocked and bamboozled. I was bereft. So it got to my pick, and I was like, damn it, I'll take Puka Nacua. And guess what? I kicked the shit out of that league to the tune of more than doubling the second place points, won the ship, completely cleared everybody, and just basically like it was a sprint to the finish for me. I just absolutely destroyed everybody. Except for 1 week, Puka was hurt, I want to say, and Trey Tucker, of all guys, my rookie for my Raiders, he outscored my 2023 wide receiver MVP because he was the other guy in this two-man roster, and that is Jaden Reed, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Now, you want to talk about somebody who's going to be shooting up draft boards in 2024? Well, guess what? Jordan Love was a top 10 quarterback in 2023, and Jaden Reed is his number one target. Forget Christian Watson. Forget Romeo Doubs. Get healthy, Luke Musgrave. Please come back. Jaden Reed is the dude. He did a whole lot as a rookie. He and Puka helped carry me to the ship in this league. Also, I have him in my home league. I got him at a super great value. Traded on draft day and wound up like it was, hey, you pick this guy and give me that pick, blah, blah, blah. And then they got to that pick and they were like, who do you want me to draft for you? And I said, Jaden Reed. And so they threw me Jaden Reed. And it worked out. And Jaden Reed was a baller, and he's just going to do more. The sky is the limit for both of these rookies. Ironically, Grindberg and I both have chosen rookie wide receivers for our 2023 fantasy MVPs. Now, this is a position where the standard narrative in dynasty leagues was that rookie wide receivers they're not reliable. You can't really expect huge production out of them. That is all changing. We are in a new era of receiving, both with wide receivers and with tight end. And wide receivers are able to show out earlier and earlier, like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra St. Brown and all these guys who are doing great things as rookies. And this is a spoiler alert. Make sure that you stay tuned and watch the third episode of this slow roll podcast, because I'm going to be giving you some rookie wide receivers next year that you're going to want to keep your eye on. So,
And
all right. And with that,
are a ton of them. There's a ton of them, and we have to emphasize that, because if there's any value in this draft, there is at the wide receiver position. The running back position, from what I have researched, is a bit more shallow in this draft, but the wide receivers is where apparently a lot of the gems are, and I'm hoping that you can enlighten me on that, because I need some I need some insight on that end, and I'm looking forward to it. But you talked about one of my breakout candidates for next year, and I'm going to get into Jaden Reed as well. I'm really, really excited about that Packer offense. They are so young. Jordan Love was actually the QB5, man. Did you know that? Like, he finished as the QB5. Like, I had him as a breakout candidate, and then I looked at where he finished, and I'm like, how could you? Like, he already broke out his first season. He ballered, and you can't deny it. And now he's got all these young weapons, those two tight ends that are going to be unstoppable to block. You're going to have, Jaden Reed, who's young.
Dontavian
Wicks. That's the other one I was just, you stole it right out of my mouth. And I'm not even talking about Watson. I'm not talking about Dobbs. I'm talking about those two guys. Those two guys are you've convinced me on them. I've been watching tape on them, and they look lights out. I like the four of those guys: Kraft, Musgrave, Wicks, and Reed moving forward. And then you know what? Their backfield, we'll see what happens there. But got a young quarterback that's making the right decisions, and they've done it again. Green Bay, you did it again.
And people who are dedicated viewers of this podcast have heard me talk about in my home league. I was gunning for high draft picks and stuff. Knew that I wasn't going to make the playoffs after week 5. And so I decided to offload Tyreek Hill, and I got, as a single quarterback league, I got Jordan Love out of it. I got Luke Musgrave out of it. He threw in Wan'Dale Robinson, and I got a second rounder who I'm going to turn into a stud wide receiver. So there is so much value in Jordan Love. And just like my home league team, which is the youngest roster in the entire league, the Green Bay Packers are the youngest team as far as like offensive weapons and everything out there. So yeah, it's watch out for these Packers coming up in the next couple years with their offensive core right now. If they start building defense through the draft, they're going to be a juggernaut, and it's going to be fun for me to watch because my fantasy teams are going to benefit. So hopefully they can get a running back that can. Spoiler alert! That's for next episode.
Yeah. Hey. Okay. Well, let's go into running back. I love this. This is my creme de creme here.
You don't want to go tight end first?
Sure, I'll give you my tight end.
Shout out Koopa Fiasco, Andrew Cooper. We're going to go tight ends before we go running backs because tight ends are awesome, even though I have a no tight end league.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with people that have seen some of my work lately will probably know that I've been a big Trey McBride endorser. He is actually my tight end 1 going into next year. I've gone on record saying that. And you're going to see that in a Dynasty Pros debate with our very own Jay Goody. So I'm excited to see that roll out. And I'm going to have the viewers do a poll on that and see who won between Laporta or McBride. And hopefully my argument can sway some viewers into McBride's area. So, yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Trey McBride and how he helped me. Always a bridesmaid, but never a bride unless you either drafted or claimed league-winning tight end Trey McBride. My love for McBride is well documented. Just like Gibbs and Puka Nacua, McBride is one of the most successful parts of my winning teams this year. McBride started the season slow, but completely went off when Kyler returned to the lineup in Week 10. McBride is the tight end 3 during that span, and if you were patient enough with him, he probably helped lead you to a deep run in your league. McBride was drafted as the tight end 32 and finished this year as the tight end 7. I can't wait to yeah, man. And I can't wait to see what next year's brings with this Cardinals team with either an upgrade at quarterback or an upgrade at wide receiver. They're going to be in position to score a lot more points. McBride only scored 2 touchdowns this year, which is going to positively regress, in my opinion, with a better offense. He's going to score more touchdowns, and he's going to be very highly targeted. I see McBride as a huge asset moving forward, and I can't say enough about Trey McBride.
That's the great thing about him is that he split part of the year with Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Now there's no Zach Ertz to kick around anymore, so the numbers are just going to get better for McBride. I had him in the fishbowl. Loved it, although I did get knocked out during his bye week, so that kind of didn't help me. But yes, Trey McBride, absolute stud and MVP. Now, I said it's a different era for receivers. It's a different era for wide receivers and tight ends, and Trey McBride is kind of on the cusp of that. Coming out of Colorado State, it was obvious the guy was a stud. And
Yeah.
tight end is usually a position that it takes 4 or 5 years, kind of like my MVP, to kind of get going. And we have tight ends coming into the league now that are beating that mold. Again, spoiler alert for the tight ends in my top 10 rookies coming out. Top 10 rookie values. But yeah, McBride was an absolute stud, and I'm happy to own him in dynasties. Now, my tight end MVP for 2023. This is in my home league, where in our startup he was taken in the 22nd round. And last year, right at the beginning of the season, I picked him up off waivers. So this is a waiver grab who managed to finish this season as tight end 6 in PPR. Now, that's a loaded stat, okay? Because if you really get down to brass tacks, single digit outcome in week 1, week 2, week 3, broke double digits in week 4, bye week, then single digits again in week 6 against San Francisco. He was tight end 20. But then he started to cook. Tight end 11 in week 7. Tight end 7 in week 8. Oh, hey, here we're coming on. Double digits again, double digits again, double digits again. Everything until week 13. He had a pretty down week. But this kid and I can say kid. He was getting 15 targets, 9 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets. And when it's critical, when you need the most help is in the fantasy playoffs. And his tight end finishes in the last 4 weeks of the season from week 14 to week 17. Tight end 2, tight end 2, tight end 4, and tight end 3. Holy shit, David Njoku. Have yourself a last quarter of the season, bro. That was epic. Absolutely epic. So David Njoku is my 2023 tight end MVP.
And that's no joke.
Yeah. Yeah, he was good. All right. Yeah, it's funny. I love the sleeper nicknames. And so I have a thing where in other leagues I'll try and make up stuff. But in my home league, I actually research guys' nicknames from college, things like that. And if I go through this, 3-step process and can't find a nickname for him, then I make something up. But one of my buddies in the home league, he has Puka Nacua, and he nicknamed him "I Make You Puka," like puke. And I thought that was funny. So Njoku's nickname in this league is "I Make You Njuka."
Njuka. I love it.
All right, running backs. Let's do running backs now, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, do you have a defense? Do you have a defense MVP?
Not off the top of my head.
Raiders.
Yeah, we'll say the Raiders. I also think the Chiefs can be in that conversation. They were pretty steady for most of the season. Most people didn't put them on their radar as a defense that you would be starting on a regular basis, but you got L'Jarius Sneed playing lights out, who got snuffed from the Pro Bowl.
That is not a Pro Bowl level cornerback.
It is when you're stuffing guys like Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill, all these guys under their average. I think the list goes on the amount of guys that he kept under wraps this year. So he should have been there, and you know that. They had second most sacks in the league, So, they played lights out as well. So I
Yeah.
definitely think down the stretch, your Raiders played better football, won a lot of people's championships because it is a streaming position. So I think the Raiders were more valuable than the Chiefs down the stretch.
Later.
And for fantasy, yeah.
No, it
But
was
they
middle
were
of the season was middle third of the season was all Chiefs, and late third of the season was all Raiders. So if you had either of those teams and you were streaming them, both of those teams were teams that you were kind of like going back and forth with, and one of them would catch. And so like I did that. I sat on Kansas City for about 5 or 6 weeks, and they like tore it up, and then went and shifted to the Raiders because they had a good matchup, and suddenly they just absolutely took off, and I didn't need to like stray. So yeah, both of those AFC West giants, yeah, they had really good DST seasons, and so yeah, let's just say they're the defensive special teams MVPs for the season. Chiefs and Raiders, you and me, let's go, buddy.
all right, buddy. I love
All right.
it. And I like how it just casually fell in our laps that way. That wasn't part of the plan. We never talked about defenses, and then we just went to bat.
I mean, I
for our
made some
teams.
calls. I
Yeah.
called Patrick Graham, and I got in his ear, and I was like, "Look, man, I've got this podcast, and there's high stakes. I need like you guys need to do something." And he, Patrick Graham, he listened.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's there next year.
I hope so. Good Lord, I love that man. I watched
All right.
film when. Sorry, I'm going to hijack
No.
this. When Patrick Graham was first hired to be the defensive coordinator of the Raiders, I did a lot of research and watched a lot of Giants film, New York Giants film. And that dude he was rushing 2 players and getting sacks. Like his mind he's a fucking genius. And Josh McDaniels hamstrung him, wouldn't let him use his personnel, didn't like his formations and stuff. Why are you going to have the guy there? Why are you going to hire the guy as your D coordinator and then not utilize his genius? And then once McDaniels left, you saw when Patrick Graham was able to go out and execute his defensive game plan and use his guys, they absolutely tore it up. And Chiefs fans know that better than anybody.
Yes, they do. Thanks for that.
Merry Christmas to Raiders fans.
Yeah, that was everything you wanted on Christmas.
Oh my God, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was good. It was a happy moment for you, and I appreciate that you didn't, stick it down my throat too bad. Yeah.
Much happier than the rehearsal I spent working with my sketch troupe, watching the other Chiefs Raiders game on my phone, and that's ironic though. I watched both of those games live on my phone. But we had a 17-0 lead and lose like 48 to 17, 30 something to 17. That was atrocious. So, goodbye, Josh McD. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Okay. Too much. Running backs. Let's go.
All right. So I had a huge ownership of this running back. So many of my leagues were depending on him to do well. I punted that position. I punted running back in so many of my leagues because I felt that Jahmyr Gibbs, if he could hit, would give my team an edge. Widely being drafted as the RB13 headed into this year, Gibbs was my joker. On every team I did well on this year, Gibbs was the cornerstone, helping me get into many playoffs, and once there, flourishing. Gibbs finished 2023 with 915 rushing yards, 52 receptions for an additional 316 yards through the air, and capped it off with an incredible 10 touchdowns. After a slow start, Gibbs finished as the RB6. Gibbs is almost a lock to be a first-round pick next year in redraft, and he is now my Dynasty RB1, period. Jahmyr Gibbs. Thank you, sir.
Mine is Breece Hall. But I'm going to say this. Jahmyr Gibbs had a fantastic year. it was kind of insulting the way that he was used in the first month of the season. And you and I played in a specific league in which I had Jahmyr Gibbs, and it wasn't enough to push me into the playoffs. I got eliminated, just missed out on the playoffs. I would have been the last seed in, and I didn't make it. And Jahmyr Gibbs just wasn't enough to overcome my least valuable running back, who, stay tuned to the next episode, and you will hear who that is. All right. My MVP at running back for the 2023 season. Now, this guy, we talked about a lot on the podcast, and it took a couple weeks of me playing him and him not doing good, and then sitting him and he did great, and then playing him and he did good, not playing him and he did good, and then sitting him and he did great. But my 2023 MVP is Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford is another guy who I've sat on for a couple years in Dynasty, just waiting for him to get his opportunity, similar to what people did with Tony Pollard, only Jerome Ford actually showed up. And everybody scrambled to the waiver wire as soon as Nick Chubb got hurt to grab him, and I already had him. He finished as RB18, so that's solid RB2 numbers. He did have top 12 spikes throughout the season, and it was a joy to watch. The guy is an all-around back in the mold of Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Josh Jacobs, just a solid dude who can give you 25 carries a game, catch 5 or 6 passes. Moving forward with the Cleveland Browns, who at this point look like an absolute perennial contender in the AFC, watch out for Ford over the next 2 seasons. He's going to be a heavy carry, 5 to 6 reception a game running back, a focal point of that Browns offense, especially if they can get things worked out with Deshaun Watson. Jerome Ford, RB18, helped carry me. He is my RB MVP 2023. That's a rhyme. I got bars. And that's about it for part 1, Mike.
Yeah.
We're going to flip over, and we'll give you guys the lowdown on our least valuable players. So wait for that episode to come out. From the Fantasy Burn Studios in beautiful Northern California, I'm Big Bone at FFB. He's FF Canuck 99. I want to say thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Let's go with the algorithm, and I'll see you on the other side, Mike.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Peace out, folks.
Everybody watching, I hope you win.